So this is a SAAB 95 2006, and if you have one of these, then you have this problem. You can see it's got the 17-inch wheels, and if you come back here and look, you'll see that the wheels are canted, so the inside edge of the tire wears. And that's because the suspension sags over time. And here's a way to measure it and make sure. So if you measure from the bottom edge of the wheel up to there, you should, this is now at 23 inches, it should be about 24. So it should be 2 feet. So this car is sagged almost a whole inch. And I'm going to show how to boost that back up to 24 inches without any expensive hardware, and something you can do yourself. Alright, so we've got the wheel off, and this is the spring that compresses over time and then it sags a bit. So we're going to shim that up very easily. So first, you got to take these 4 bolts loose. So these two, just take them off, and then these two you just loosen and they come off. And then there's just the 1 bolt holding the shock on. Okay, and you can see we're going to put a shim. We're going to put a shim right here under that saddle. Okay, so shock is off, and there you'll see the nut. Now you want to wire wheel those threads so you can get that baby off. Okay, I used my front spring compressor. You just use one side because it's a smaller spring that's in the front. And then you just got to compress it until you see a little play in the shock here. Then you can take it off. And I use an impact to take this off, this impact wrench. Okay, so the shaft on this shock is spinning, which is really common, and in order to stop that, I just push down the rubber bumper, and I'm replacing the shock, so it doesn't bother me any to grab the shaft with the vice grips. If you're not going to replace the shock, then you have to use these ends and do this operation with box open end wrenches. Much easier to replace the shock, and if you're going to do all this work, I don't know why you would put an old shock back in there, but that's totally up to you. So here is the stock shock on the left next to the new shock. Alright, and you can see the gas charge, if there ever was one, is gone out of the original shock, which has 140,000 miles on it. The new shock has a nice gas charge on it. It's nothing fancy, it's just a Monroe. But if you buy 4, you get a warranty. They're priced well, Rock Auto. You know, you could argue about you need an Aero specific one or blah, blah, blah. What do I do with the car? It gets driven to work. So, not really going to the racetrack. You need the power to occasionally pass somebody on the highway. Anyways, this saddle just pound both sides, and that saddle comes up, and you see these nipples right here. Okay, they're in both shocks. Now here's the secret to jacking the car up. This is a piece of 1.5-inch galvanized pipe, and what you do is you go to Home Depot and you buy a 12-inch galvanized nipple, and then you ask them to cut it. They cut the threads off, and then you cut 2 pieces, 3/4 inches in length. Okay, so I've got 2, one for each side, 3/4 inches. Now what I'm going to do is take a little bit of that chamfer off, okay, so it doesn't bite into the metal, and then this is going to go over the shock and fit on these nubbins, and then the new saddle will go right down on top of it, and you've just raised the shock 3/4 of an inch. You've given it 3/4 inches of height, and that translates to about an inch, inch and a quarter on the outside of the car. So it will jack the rear end of the car up, and it will fix the camber problem of these shocks. So I'll show you that when I've got it assembled. Oh, and then when you take this off, these caps, they just come off, right? They just pull off, and then you put them right back on when you're done. Now here's the two shocks, and you can see I put the 1.5 inch piece of pipe. It's 1.5 inch Schedule 40 galvanized pipe, and I just took the sharp edge off of the chamfer ream, and it stays on there better. Don't take it all the way off, because then it'll be floppy. It'll still work, but just take it so it doesn't have a bite on it. And then you have to take this seat, the spring seat, off the old shock. You should probably get a new one, but I didn't. I forgot, so I'm going to reuse it. It's still functional. It'll be all right. And then you reassemble it. Just remember to put all the pieces back in the order they came off. So that's why these are sitting out the way they are, so I can remember what order they go on. I didn't touch anything. It's easy to mess this up. Okay? Well, we've got this back in there, and of course it raised it up, so you're going to have to put a jack underneath that end of the shock to get it in line, so it can compress back in there. But then you can see there's the shim right there. All right, so we can see now that the job's done how much straighter these wheels are. See how nicely they're up and down. They don't have that camber anymore. That was the goal. So hopefully we'll get nice even wear on those tires, and they'll last a long time.